This conference will now be recorded.
Well, hello, everybody. This is Jim Marshall. This is May the 6th of 2025, how time flies. And this is the Veteran Support Group through the AnCan Foundation with sponsorship for the video aspect. And I would like to thank Johnson & Johnson for their support of us. I think it's very, very good. So anyway, this is a veteran support to talk about the VA. We also talk about military retirement and how it can intersect with veteran benefits and healthcare. So we talk about the military retirement and healthcare. And also as a sidebar, I am a civilian retiree, and there can be implications of its retirement and healthcare with military retirement and healthcare and the VA. So we cover all three aspects and the intersection of it. So today we got a good group here, and Jeff Dwyer, you have something to talk about, I hear.
Well, yeah, gentlemen, this is the first time I've ever visited a AnCan vets group. I would look at the YouTubes on years past and got some benefits out of the operation, but I've never actually physically come to one of these meetings. But I've been talking to Jim about filing a claim for the effects of interstitial lung disease, which I learned I got about a year ago. And it turns out that from what I've learned is interstitial lung disease can be, what is the term, Jim? Linked more
service connection.
Yeah, service connected, but also more likely than not was obtained when I was in the Navy between 1967 and 71, and I was stationed at NAS Oceana in VF 101, working in maintenance administration in the hangar, and I was around J5 jet fuel, which basically gives off after benzene, which is a carcinogen. And from what I've read, since Jim pointed it out to me, basically, if you're exposed to that stuff for more than 30 days, you have more likely than not respiratory problems. Well, I also have prostate cancer. So while I was getting a PSMA PET scan, of which I've had about half a dozen, the radiologist said, Jeff, you've got a nodule in your left lung. It's 7 millimeters long, and it's suspicious, but they don't know what it is. So the background on this turns out to be that as a result of that radiologist at Dana-Farber Medical Cancer Center, he sent me over to Mass General Brigham to the pulmonology department. They looked at it because I had a slight cough and shortness of breath, which I assumed was the result of something happening. I have coronary artery disease. I've got like 5 comorbidities, and I'd had quintuple bypass surgery in 2021 and one of the symptoms was shortness of breath. So I thought that was coming back, but it turns out it was this interstitial lung disease, which I'd never heard about before. So I started learning about that. When I was talking to Jim about it, he said, you might have a claim for interstitial lung disease because of your exposure to J5 jet fuel at Oceana. Turns out Oceana was one of the sites that's listed for exposure to J5 jet fuel. So this past month, I went down to the University of Pennsylvania and had SBRT, stereotactic body radiation therapy, for that lung nodule, and some prostate cancer that's growing on my T1 of my spine. This is my second biochemical recurrence of the prostate cancer. So I choose to get it treated, even though I live in Western Massachusetts. I choose to get it treated at UPenn because they have the Perlman Center there that has both proton beam and proton radiation. So I went back down there. I'd already been treated once there for biochemical recurrence back in October of 22. So I went back there again this past earlier in April and had 5 sessions of radiation on that nodule in my left lung. Turns out when you've got interstitial lung disease, the surgeons won't operate and take it out with robotic surgery. Just go in there. Normally, if you didn't have interstitial lung disease, they'd go in and do it robotically and snip that little tumor out, and then they could biopsy and tell you whether it's whatever form of lung cancer it is, or is it prostate cancer that has migrated to the lungs, which prostate cancer does. But because they couldn't do surgery, the radiologist at UPenn had to radiate blind. Basically, he said to me, we have no idea what it is, what kind of cancer it is, but it's grown from 7 millimeters to 20 millimeters, so it's growing. Let's nuke it. And if your PSA drops, my PSA had gone from 0 back up to 4, so it's the prostate cancer is growing somewhere. We knew it. We found out it was growing on my spine, but it also might be growing in my lung. But we'll never know because they can't biopsy a radiated tumor. So at this point, this morning, I met with my pulmonologist at Mass General with a telemed conference. And what was fascinating was they are totally unaware. I guess it's because the interstitial lung disease was just added to some of the service-connected disabilities. I think it was in 94 or 2024, maybe earlier, but I think it was 2024. So she was totally unaware of it. So I basically told her I'd send her the papers that I recovered about it, and she was going to tell it to her pulmonary colleagues, because they kept asking me what I was exposed to earlier. I never smoked, but I had been around crystalline dust. I worked at a Norton Abrasive Company in Worcester, Mass, summers, and I emptied boxcars and tanker trucks with crystalline dust. Of course, we used masks for that because it was all in the air, but probably not the right masks. So I always assumed it was from the crystalline dust or being around campfires or whatever. But it turns out it's probably a result of that J5 jet fuel. And so at this point, I'm asking Jim to help me with the claim. I filed it on his recommendation about a month and a half ago, just to get on record that I intend to file. And now I'm going to file it And Jim and I were talking about, well, if you've got so many comorbidities between prostate cancer, um, coronary artery disease, have osteoporosis, we found out that every vertebrae in my spine has collapsed. I've gone from being 6'2" to 5'10", just, and I basically lost 4 inches, and I'm bent over like the little old guy you used to see on Laughing. Kind of, and
Right.
I had a bitch of a time when they started collapsing. It was like the World Trade Center. One went, then the next one went, the next one went. They just pancaked right down my spine. So I was in bed for about 3 months and lost a bunch of weight, but I couldn't move because of the pain. I've since dealt with the pain, um, first with opiates, tramadol, that constipated me, which is opiate-induced constipation. If you've had it, you know what I'm talking about. If you've not had it, you never want it. But
Yeah.
I got it. Then I ended up with the palliative care team down at Dana-Farber, and that was an amazing situation because in that meeting, there was a pharmacist, a social worker, a psychiatrist, first time I've ever had a psychiatrist in my life, and a physician, all talking to me about pain. And basically, when they sent me out, the psychiatrist suggested that I investigate cannabis, which I have done, and I'm now using hemp, and it works. It's working. Basically, takes that back pain to tolerable to function, which
Oh,
is
okay.
kind of fascinating. Massachusetts, you can walk in retail. There's actually 12 marijuana retail joints in my town. It's kind of amazing. Um, a lot of them are failing right now because there's too much competition in the state of Massachusetts. But I'm able to go to an organic hemp farm and purchase capsules of CBD derived from cannabis that does reduce the pain considerably. So I got great care from the palliative care people at Dana-Farber. So my next step is to supply Jim, um, or he can tell me what I need to supply for the upload of the claim to see if what the VA will make the decision if I qualify for some kind of disability for the interstitial lung disease from the J5 jet fuel. So that's my
Okay.
speech. That's my speech for tonight, guys.
Okay. Yeah. He has an interesting case because, as I said, called me a while ago about the ILS, and I started to look at where he was stationed, Oceana and ILD, it's called, and it seems to me I did find service connection of ILD, and I'm not quite sure where I put it, but I
I got it.
remember I did find it for the ILD. Now, on the heart issues, I think I don't recall in my notes writing down anything about heart issues, but I will do that and also try to find some service connection with what you were at Oceana, and then you were at Millington.
I was at Millington. I was in aviation fundamentals and then aviation. Back then it was called aviation electronics back in 67, 68. Um, and
Right.
basically when you left there, you were supposed to go right to, I was going right to USS Oriskany, Tonkin Gulf, 13 months Westpac. but I broke my arm playing football against the Quantico Marines in two
Gee.
in two places a week before I was due to ship out, and I ended up in the hospital with surgery, pins, and I spent a year there.
Oh, wow.
Now, think about how fast you get pushed out of a hospital today. Back then, I went through PT, multiple casts, what have you. I worked in patient affairs. I worked in the library. I worked in the chaplain's office because I was a clerk. Anytime anyone asked in any setting, any superior enlisted man would ask, "Who can type here?" I'd put my hand up, and I became that guy or that chief's or that lieutenant commander's clerk. So
Right.
think Radar O'Reilly, because that's what it was. Because all the communications back then, before electronics, came in on teletype
Yep.
overnight, and I would be the first one in the office, tearing off the teletype, logging them in, and every time there was something shipping out, whoever I was working for would say, "You can go with the next group," and they kept me around because I was efficient. And
Yeah,
that
that
worked out
is.
well. That worked out well for me because I never went on an aircraft carrier. I
Yeah.
stayed on the ground.
Yeah, that was interesting. I know clerks are hard to find. I have a story about a guy I will talk about at the end that he was also a clerk. So, okay. So, the thing I need to do is start to bring your case up to the top to more active because I've got about two or three that I'm currently working on. And then at the time I do, I will try to round up the thing. Now, the thing that you need to do is to get in place because what the VA will require is nexus. In other words, the reports that say indeed you do have it and you are currently being treated. So
Got all those.
right, for the
Tomorrow,
ILD.
tomorrow I go to the VA here in Western Mass. We have a hospital
Oh,
just,
okay.
and I've got a primary care physician there that I got a couple of years ago so I could get hearing aids. I had a 10% disability from the service when I was discharged, so I could get hearing aids and eyeglasses. So I picked up a primary care physician, but I haven't seen him in a few years because
Right.
I get all my care in the outside world. So I'm going to see him tomorrow, 2 o'clock. So today I uploaded about 150 pages of reports, scans, um, physician notes, and everything, so he could see what's happened to me since our first meeting when he examined me a few years ago. And just, I'd never used the VA for anything. I kind of figured that was for retired guys, full-time retired guys, or full-time disabled guys, not clerks that got hurt playing football. But it turns
Not
out that,
necessarily. Not
yeah,
now.
yeah, you know,
Understand that even though you then uploaded that, you you did it into the healthcare side of the VA,
correct.
not
I've got,
on the benefit side. So at the time we put the claim together, uh, I will need just the fact that you are diagnosed with it and you're currently under treatment.
yeah, I've
Okay?
got I've got that because I talked to that pulmonologist today, and I explained to her, because I think
Right.
uh, about what ILD was, and she basically will. I said I'm going to need a pretty thorough explanation of where we stand right now with my treatment over the past year, and she said she would prepare that. So I will have that from, and
Okay.
that'll come from Mass General Brigham in Boston.
Fine. Then then for the coronary artery disease, the fact that I take it you did have the a single bypass, double, triple, or a quad?
Quintuple.
Quintuple, five
I
way?
I had five. I had five.
Oh, I only had three. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that was, yeah. So now, out of that, after you had that, and after you went through the cardiac rehab and all that stuff, anywhere along the way, did they either before or after give you a stress test
I have multiple
on the
stress tests.
treadmill?
Oh yeah.
Okay, those are those are the kinds of things. Okay, on the cardiac thing, out of the stress test, um, there's a reading called MET, M-E-T, and it has a number from 0 to 15 or something, and I don't remember. It has something to do with the amount of oxygen and all kinds of things. That, if you have that, we can see what your rating will ultimately come out to be. After mine, I had a MET score of 3, and anywhere from 3 to 7 was like 100%. So I'm currently rated 100% for the heart because
I
the VA
yeah.
will do residual effects. Okay.
Yep.
The fact that now, if you filed a claim when you're having the surgery, then the VA will allow you 6 months, 100% temporary to heal from the surgery. At the end of 6 months, they want to then downgrade you based upon residual effects, whatever they are. And they could be you are perfectly okay and you will get, if they rate it, you'll be a service connected, but you may get a rating of 0.
I was diagnosed with coronary artery disease in 2015 and got three opinions. The first opinion wanted surgery the next day, and
Right.
I said, no, I think I'm going to take a step back. And I got two more opinions. And basically, nuclear medicine in cardiac had just started. And I got the guy at Brigham and Women in Boston who was the head of it. And he did a PET scan, which was kind of fascinating to see what was blocked where, and said that my ejection fraction was just below 50%. And he didn't feel I needed the surgery immediately. We would watch it if I changed my diet. So I went from 240 pounds drinking whiskey and eating steak and eating cheese to becoming a red wine sipper and a vegan. We threw away we threw away every piece of meat and all the cookbooks my wife changed. So I went from 240 to 180.
Wow.
And my cholesterol went from 230 to 70. It's an amazing because I had totally clogged up those arteries. And I was able to postpone that surgery until from 2015 to 2021.
Wow.
But then when I went in for a follow-up PET scan, my cardiologist looked at me and said, "We've pushed it as far as we can. You've you are losing ejection fraction. I'm going to tell you should go home and make yourself comfortable for the ultimate heart attack, or you've got to have bypass surgery." So 2 days later, I had 5 bypasses done in Boston, and it
Right.
was during the pandemic. So
Oh, wow.
I couldn't go to rehab because the rehab was closed, and I couldn't have them do home rehab because when you think about it, home rehab, they go to 5 or 6 places and they take around the COVID virus from place to place.
Yeah.
So we remained isolated. I bought a treadmill and I tried to do this stuff, but it took me a lot longer than it probably would have to get through cardiac rehab
Right.
uh, because I wasn't being disciplined by somebody in a rehab facility. I was trying to do it myself.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
but
Okay.
I've got all
Well,
those got all those reports.
okay, good. And then we'll start from there. And then the thing I'll do is that I will try to put together the um, the narrative for this, and the forms should be fairly easy for this because for you it'll be the VBA 21-526EZ filing the claim. Now, I take it, what did you file the claim for in the first place
I
that
just
got you pinned?
I just basically did the notice of intent to file. That's
No,
all.
you said you were already 10% disabled.
Oh, when I was getting out of coming up for discharge, I put a claim in because I lost range of motion. And I basically couldn't, I couldn't do, what's it called? Pronation and where you twist if you take your forearm and you try to twist it so your hand is facing flat, couldn't do that. And I still have a restriction there. Because I snapped both bones in my right forearm,
Oh, okay.
the,
It
the
is
radius
because
and the ulna, and they put pins in that were in for a year.
right. Okay.
While that I basically, they just basically said we're awarding you 10% because you've got range of motion issues. They had me going to PT, and I could never get my elbow to lock in place or my wrist to rotate the way it was supposed to. And I've had that claim when I got out in 71, I got paid $7.50 a month.
Right.
It's now $145 a month,
Yeah.
but it's the same 10%.
I have a question. Has that possibly gotten worse at all over
No,
time?
no, it
No?
hasn't. No, it hasn't. I basically,
Okay.
um, you kind of learn how to compensate when it doesn't twist that way. And,
Sure.
I saw, and my father had been in the Army Air Corps during World War II, and he said, put a claim in because you don't know what's going to happen if you get arthritis on those bones.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. That is true.
So I
Okay.
did. So I did do that, and
Okay. Great.
and but I wish he died in his like at 94. I wish he was alive. I wish I'd asked him, hey, did you ever get checked for prostate cancer? I know he had coronary heart. I know he had congestive heart failure. That's what he died from, because he was an Irishman. He was like all of us, drank too
Yeah.
much, ate too much. But he but he never got checked for prostate cancer. None of
Okay.
none of his 5 brothers did either. So I have no idea if there's a family hereditary or if it was induced from something else. Who
Well,
knows?
you never know. Okay. That'll be good. Okay. Tony Fig, where are you? Oh, there you are.
I'm right here.
Yes.
I submitted a claim online,
Right.
a fully development claim, February 3rd of this year.
Right.
And on February 12th, I sent a request to the Navy for medical records and my administrative records. And they have not gotten anything back. I just called them this past week and they haven't received anything. So I did get copies of both of those last August, and
Okay.
some of the things that I'm claiming is prostate cancer, and that would be for exposure to Agent Orange when I was in uh, Guam,
Guam.
and also I was aboard the submarine when it was under construction, so I was exposed to asbestos and a lot of other stuff.
Right.
So there was the prostate cancer as part of that, and another element that I was claiming was some damage to my nose and sinuses as a result of an accident on the sub. I was on the conning tower. We couldn't stay at periscope depth because it was really rough. So I was up with the captain on the conning tower, and a rogue wave came over. I think it was like 90 feet, and it smashed us against the bulkheads there and did a number. So I had pretty severe concussion and laceration, and they had to re-break my nose and reset it when I came back on land. So none of the information that I got from the Navy for my medical addresses any of that. Nothing was stated on it. And none of the administrative side of it shows that I was in Guam. So the only thing I can think of is that all of that information should be contained in the ship's log for the time period I was out there. That we had a
Right.
medical doctor on board that treated me and gave me stitches and my nose and uh, that area there. But none of when the VA gets this information from the records, it's not going to have everything that they really could use to solidify my claim. And
Okay.
so
Well,
I did a really extensive Google search trying to find someplace where I could get a copy of the ship's log. And because it was a nuclear powered Polaris submarine, maybe it's completely classified, and I don't know if I ever could get it. So I don't know what direction to take right now. I know that the VA doesn't have those medical and administrative records, so I can scan them and send them to the VA so they get them quicker, but I'm not sure how to submit them. So that
okay.
would be, another
Right.
question.
At this point, the claim is already in. So
Yep, in
what
process.
what we'd have to do um, is wait until they make a decision and figure out what that decision, because it seems to me there was some evidence that you had at the time that you reenlisted, right? Because it was on some document that we submitted that said you had issues.
Well, chronic sinusitis was
Right,
the
the
issue.
chronic rhinitis, which was what you were claiming. You weren't
Right.
claiming and with a broken nose or the fact that you had surgery, because the surgery was already done, but the residual effects of the surgery was the sinusitis or sinus, yeah, nose
Yeah.
problems. Yes.
Yeah.
So hopefully they will buy that. Now, the prostate cancer is going to be a little tricky because I was going to wait to bring up this, but it it's germane because I have a guy also that I helped stick together a claim, and he got his basic training at Fort Knox, and he had AIT. This was in 1972. So he did AIT there, which was 4 months. Then he attended a clerk school, and he was supposed to go to Vietnam. But they said, nope, no more troops to Nam, and they diverted him to Germany. So, okay, fine. Finishes the clerk school, buys a new car, and he drives it east, and he's supposed to catch a plane out of New Jersey. And all of a sudden he says, well, how do I ship the car? So he stops into Meyer, Fort Meyer here, and he tracks down a sergeant major, and the sergeant major opens up his records and sees that he completed a 2-month clerk school in 2 weeks. And he said, how did you do that? He said, it was easy. I guess he could type and all that stuff. And he said, you're staying here. You're not going to go to Germany, right? So he stayed here for 19 months. And he's out, and he's gone. 1974, fast forward 2024, and I bump into him over at the cemetery over here, and I start talking to him, and he's got prostate cancer. Okay, so I get curious about Fort Knox, and it turns out Fort Knox is being cleaned up for a chemical called TCE, trichloroethylene. And there are a number of bases like Travis Air Force Base is a cleanup for TCE. And I find the information that TCE can cause prostate cancer. Service connection. We got a winner here. So we put together a claim, and he submit this, okay, with all of these reports, okay. And also, as you know, I then advocate not putting the narrative onto the 21-4138 form. I recommend putting it in as a sworn statement on the 21-10210. So you are swearing under oath, which I understand can add more weight. Well, a couple of days ago, he calls me and says, okay, the claim was denied, but there's a catch. Okay. And this is the good catch. Now, if you put in a claim, there is a healthcare evaluation done. In other words, you put in the claim into the benefit side of the VA, and there's a healthcare entity that evaluates you for a thing called TERA, TERA, toxic exposure risk activity. And if you can claim that you were exposed to toxic materials, you can be awarded 100% free VA healthcare the rest of your life. Now, prior to this, remember, anytime you're 10, 20, 30, or 40% disabled, the only free healthcare you get is what you have been rated for. You get 50 to 100, you get it all, anything, a free ride. But, so he was denied everything, but he was still, surprisingly, they awarded him TERA. So even though he was denied everything, he got TERA. Now, the part that I want to stress, and so we started talking about this, for the guys that have gotten their determination, in that determination, right after they tell you how much you got for each in a sentence or two, there is a section called evidence. Okay? That evidence you should cross-check against what you submitted. Remember in the recommendation that I've got in the template, after you introduce yourself, there is a list of files that you are going to submit to the VA. In other words, the names of those, the names which will appear in the directory where your claim is stored. What happened to him, I remember I submitted evidence, I submitted reports, and in fact, he even submitted the VBA 21-10210. He looked in that list of evidence they used to then evaluate the claim. It wasn't in there. They never read it, and they never considered those reports. Medical opinions or anything, and they have denied its claim. So the next question is, what is a recourse? Well, in the recourse, I have to meet them tomorrow, and we're going to map out a strategy. And the recourse is to put in a supplemental claim, which is a 20-0995, and highlight that these other things that were submitted were never considered. And also, I dragged down a lot of VA citations. Remember, VA citations are court opinions of appeals. Why they call it a VA citation, I have no idea. And they have a number. And I found 4 or 5 of these things that awarded service connection for prostate cancer because of exposure to TCE. So that's the way that the game is played. So anytime you get a VA determination, make sure that you check, number one, that list of evidence that you submitted against the list of evidence that they created. And if they don't match, it might explain why something happened. Then also in that list of evidence, you might see something called TERA memorandum has been created. If you see that, you have hit the jackpot. You have now instantly become awarded 100% free VA healthcare, even if you're only 10% for anything, hypertension or what. You still get free, 100% free VA healthcare. And that can be awarded even if you weren't covered under the PACT Act, as he was not covered under the PACT Act. So anybody have any questions on the fine points of that? Or if you would like for me to discuss it further, I would be happy to, because that is a real sleeper.
Jim, is his claim fully formed, or does that even matter in this case?
Henry Holloway.
Wait, Bill, you said, is his claim fully formed? What do you mean? Did he submit a fully developed claim?
Yes.
Yes, he did, because I helped him. The fact is, he submitted about 9 files. What I think showed up under the evidence were only 4 or 5. So even though it was a fully developed claim, and I can't figure out how they learned about the TCE if they did not read the VBA 21-10210. I have no idea. but in the end, they awarded him TERA. So I will try to look at it tomorrow at the time I meet him.
Jim, excuse me, how do they determine where you were stationed from your DD 214?
Well, no, actually, the thing that happens is that, yes, you will, long ago, at the time that you filed the claim originally, they have a DD 214 for you.
Yeah, I
All
have
they
that.
need is one to then certify that you are a veteran, and there are certain rules for what will make you a veteran, and if you are eligible. Now, what they do at the time that you submit a claim in the first time, they go to the NARA, which is the records folks in the salt mine in southern Illinois, and you might see a St. Louis address on this thing, but the salt mine's over in southern Illinois, and they retrieve and make a copy of your records, military and health, and send them to the VA. That is what has been done for years. Now, for the new troops, and I don't know how long this has been happening, but anytime you are discharged out of the military, there's a transition office that will file a claim on your behalf. So records will automatically go from the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, straight to the VA. And if you're in perfect health, obviously you aren't going to get anything, but you're in the VA system, and the VA has a copy of your records.
Good.
So that has been happening for a number of years now, and I think it's a great idea.
Jim, should I try to submit the copies of the medical and administrative things I received from the VA, because it's been
No,
3 months and the VA hasn't received it?
well, actually, no, not at this point, because if you do that, it will take your claim all the way back to whatever, and it'll just confuse them. So how about to let it play out, and then at the time it's decided, you then have 1 year from the time that it's decided to put in a supplemental claim, but you'd only have to send them the records of what pertains to what you had applied for. You don't
Right.
have to have the entire, this is your life.
Yeah.
This
All
was
right.
your career.
All right. Thank you very much for your help, Jim.
Okay. Henry, I think you had a question.
Yes. My case, being that I was at Fort Knox, would be
Yes,
similar to the veterans that you just described, right?
absolutely. Yes, that is what I think. Now, the other aspect which I delved into this is, do we need a doctor to have, because in those VA citation rulings, in other words, what happens at the time you appeal, your case goes to a judge, and it's a law judge, admin law judge. And I have a number of those I found from all the way back to 2010. And so I was trying to hunt around for anybody that got service connection for TCE. Okay. And the question that I can't answer yet, well, in all of these, every one of them had a doctor's statement that said, in the doctor's opinion, TCE could have caused the prostate cancer. Okay? So, the thing I will tell Bob tomorrow is there's one of two approaches. We cannot get the doctor's opinion, and I can submit all of these VA citations which have precedence, we hope, and maybe they'll change their mind. If they don't, then the next step would be for him to find a doctor who would be willing to sign a statement that said, in his opinion, the TCE caused the prostate cancer. So I don't know if he has a doctor that he could get that from, but if he could, that would be the way to go. So I'm going to talk to him tomorrow, and we'll see what he decides to do. And then your case will be right behind his, because his is already done, and it's got, but as I said, they didn't consider all of the evidence that he submitted. So I don't know how that plays into the whole scheme. So it'll just take some time, okay, to play out. Okay, does that make sense?
Oh, I'm very patient.
Oh, good. Oh,
Very
good,
patient.
because
In fact,
in the government, nothing.
in fact, I wanted to inquire about the supplemental or the secondary.
Okay, wait.
A secondary would be a different, a claim for a different issue, right?
Well, yes, it is. It is a disability which is tied to an existing one, or one that you have claimed, like if you have a bad hip, and because you have the bad hip, it causes your knee problems because of the way that you have to walk. So
Exactly.
if the hip is service connected, and the knee is caused by the hip, you can then claim the knee secondary to the hip.
Understood.
Okay, like essentially in the prostate cancer world, if you've got the prostate cancer and you have been treated, then you can claim loss of use of creative organ secondary to the prostate cancer treatment.
One of them anyway.
Yeah, so, and a lot of guys claim ED as a part of the prostate cancer. You will always get 0 if it's for prostate cancer. Now, you can get ED for and get rated for it if you've got other urinary issues. I found out, because I found a guy that had 20% for ED, of all things. So I started to look into his thing, and he had some urinary issues that caused the ED to happen, and they gave him a 20. So
What you might find out, which I did, was that the first artery that clogs up when you have coronary artery disease is your penile artery, because as we all know, as we get older, it gets a little harder to pee, because basically that artery that's feeding the blood down there is basically clogging up first. It's in coronary artery disease world, it's called the canary in the coal mine. When you start having trouble getting it up, you should go check with a cardiologist to see if that's not linked to coronary artery disease, because oftentimes it is. And
Interesting.
because it's the smallest artery that is actively used in your in your body.
Uh-huh.
And I basically, when I was discussing this with my young cardiologist, he said, "Oh yeah," he says, when older guys come in and they can't get it up and they want Viagra, he says, I put them through a whole cardiac workup to find out if there's other arteries in their body, and invariably there are. They do
Uh-huh.
a calcium scan, which is the cheapest first thing to do, and they rate you on how much calcium is building up on your arteries. And the first indication is when you're asking for that Viagra. So it's something
Okay.
to remember. It's something to remember.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting. Michelle, you came in a little bit late, and I did not get a chance to ask you if you had anything to bring up. Michelle, are you there? Can you hear us? Well, she may have stepped away.
I hope the
Okay.
ED didn't scare her away.
Oh, no, no, no.
Yeah.
Richard, is there
Yes, sir.
anything happening with you?
Well, I'm still waiting on that supplemental appeal that I applied for
Yeah.
back in January. So I want to ask uh, the statement you made earlier about play out then apply. Well, I was planning to file a claim for some residuals after radiation treatment. Should I wait until my supplemental appeal has been decided, then
Wait,
uh,
residuals
apply for the
of
residuals? Pardon?
the prostate cancer?
Residuals of the radiation treatment,
Well, yeah, for the
prostate
prostate
cancer.
cancer.
Yes.
Um, well, Sylvester has come in. Uh, I don't know if that would be a supplemental claim or just a request to have another C&P exam. What type of residuals are you talking about?
Urinary frequency is pretty high, getting up a lot at night, changing absorbent pads during the day. With urgency incontinence is what I guess it best describes it.
Okay, so are you talking about 3 to 4 times a night, 5 to 6 times, or what?
It's right around the 5 to 6 times per night.
Okay, 3 to 4 gives you 30%, 5 to 6 gives you 40%. And on the pads, I think it's 5 or more or 6 or more pads a day.
Four or more is 60.
Yeah, okay, but to me, a day means a 24-hour day, not
Exactly.
not the daylight day.
Exactly.
So, uh, Sylvester, I think what would be appropriate would just be a 4138 asking for another C&P exam. Does that sound right or what?
If he is, in my opinion, if he is applying for residuals, then that would be a supplemental claim. But I would like to point out that some treatment comes with residual. And if it's not a permanent residual, but something that's temporary, it may already be built into the compensation payment,
Right.
the residual.
but I believe that he has already been awarded, right? You have already been awarded something for the residuals, right?
No, what had happened was that I was
No?
100%. Then I went through
Okay,
radiation treatment, and then their timetable went click, 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 boom,
right.
0%. But my PSA had not gone down. It's been at like a 5.7. So I filed the claim stating that I should continue with benefits until there's what we would call an enduring or a durable low PSA reading below 1.0. So I'm not anywhere near that now.
Okay, so the thing that you are trying to get in is to continue your 100% temporary rating.
For one, and then my question then, if since I'm still waiting to hear on that, should I wait until that's decided before I apply for the residuals, or apply for the residuals now?
Well, actually, you don't have to apply for the residuals. What'll happen when your 100% temporary runs out, whenever it will be running out, that's when they will bring you in for a CMP exam to downgrade you based upon residuals. So you're, if the supplemental claim that you've already got in is to extend your 100% temporary because you're still under treatment, then you would not want to say, look, I want to be rated for residuals right now.
Okay,
That
that
could
helps.
screw up the 100%
That helps. Okay,
because that would say that you are no longer under treatment, right?
okay, that's an important thing to hear. Okay, that now I understand the timing of what I need to do. Okay, so I'm just gonna I'm essentially on hold. I think the last time we talked, I was in
Right.
phase 6 out of 8.
Oh, okay. Well, then I know I was stuck in 5 for a while, but 6 is, I forget. I will have to look up. I found those steps, explanation of them, looking for something totally different. That might be a good topic for the reminder notes because everybody happens to look at that. Well, I'm in step 5. What's step 5? You know,
Yeah,
right.
I think.
Anybody know what step 5 is? Anybody taking the time to try to understand the steps? No problem.
Okay.
It sounds like there
Okay.
is something to do.
Okay, so that this information helps. On a
Okay.
side note, did you get my text message? Did you get the pictures?
Well, there is a problem with that, you see, because as I have explained to a lot of guys, I was an IT guy I was on the bleeding edge of technology. You can blame me for a lot of this stuff because I helped engineer it way back. I used to take a terminal home in 1979 to work from home. Of course, it was slow and it was a dial up, the phone
Oh yeah.
thing. Okay. And the acoustic coupler. Hey, I was a pioneer in that. So eventually, at the time, I got into computers in generation 2. I exited in generation 13. Being on the bleeding edge, that's all I got. I got, and so
Oh, I see.
even though I got those, there is no way to get all the stuff off of there. So I would appreciate if you could attach them to an email
Oh, okay.
and send the pictures to me in an email. I would appreciate that.
Will do. All right.
Okay. Are there any topics that anybody would like to broach?
Are you going back to Michelle? Are you going to check on Michelle again? See if she's available?
Yeah. Michelle, are you around here? I know you're signed on. Oh, let's see here. There's a lot of message. Michelle said, sorry, could not respond at 9:07.
Yeah, I was trying to check for you, Jim, to see if she had anything. She didn't respond back to me either.
Okay.
I have a question for you if you got that.
Yeah, okay, fine.
Could you explain to us the for survivor benefits between the 10-year rule and the 8-year rule?
Just so happens.
I know I was offline there for a while. Grandkids were around, and you have to spend time with the grandkids. You guys got to take a back seat, but
I noticed
give me a
that
10 and an 8-year decision.
Well, actually, all I've got is the 5, the 10, and the 20, but I know there's an 8-year. So
Correct.
I got the 5 and the 10 and the 20 here on my cheat sheet. I'm going to have to add the 8-year rule. But if you can get the 10,
I'm getting right. Go ahead.
Right. Veterans who maintain a disability for at least 10 years are protected from termination of their benefits at any time. But the VA can reduce their disability rating if they can prove that the veteran's health condition has improved substantially. There's this word in there that I've been told is substantially. Now, the question that I've got, or the observation, is with so many people applying for now under the PACT Act, because of in the Gulf War, the statistics I see that over 500,000 veterans went to the war in the Gulf over the 20 years. That means there's 500,000 veterans who are entitled to 100% free VA healthcare if they choose to use it. Plus, those 500,000 are entitled to put in a claim. And I don't know how many of them actually have. So,
what I'm speaking about is survivor benefits for our spouses on the difference between an 8-year, make it to 8 years at 100% and 10 years at 100% for our spouses.
In the reminder, I take it that you got that out of the reminder because I explained some things in the reminder about that. Okay, here I got to get to. Let's see, today is April 6th. Is that the one I put into the reminder this week?
Correct.
Okay. I'm trying to bring it up.
Yeah, I was wanting you to explain the difference between the 8-year and the 10-year.
Okay, let me see here. Apparently, okay, let me see here. Okay.
Good question, Colonel, isn't it?
Let's see here.
Yep, I was wondering that too, Mark. I just got a sister-in-law that just got her benefits based on the stuff I've learned in here for her pension.
Yeah, and the one thing is I'm coming up on 8 years, and if something was to happen to me, what's my spouse going to get for 8 years, and what happens when it gets to 10 years? Because there is a difference between the two, and It all has to be, though, you got to be 100% before all this starts kicking in. So,
Right.
that's the one thing.
Well, actually,
Permanent.
or you die of a service-connected illness.
Correct. Then
Okay.
that's a different rule.
Yes,
Yes.
that's a different rule. So
Right.
the way I read it is, if you get to 10 years, 100%, she gets a pension.
Correct.
Okay.
That I'm aware of.
Right. And then wait a minute here. Now, the 8-year rule, I didn't really look into that too heavily because I was trying to get it out here. It just looks like the veteran had a VA disability rating of total disability, in other words, 100 for at least 8 full years, and you were married to the veteran for those same 8 years. It looks like there's a different amount. Okay, the 351 added monthly amount. So I think that's the added monthly amount to the base amount. And the base amount is 1653.07. So you'd get or she'd get an extra 351.02.
Right. But then it changes when you get the 10 years.
I believe it does. This is the 8-year. So I believe she gets more money.
Correct.
A little bit more. I don't think it's that much more, because the beginning rate is 1653.07, but then after 2 years, it jumps up higher than that.
But it
Well,
doesn't start like at the 8-year point. It
right.
goes on
So
and how long?
So it's a 1653.07. You don't have children under 18. At the 8-year point, it's 351.02.
Well, I think that's something. I think that's something that the homework has to be done, because it's so confusing for people that are permanent and total at 100%, and your spouse, and I'm saying permanent and total, that has nothing to do with service connected. You got to get to that point, and you passed away. But because I understand now, if you're permanent and total and you pass away from a service connected, that's totally different. There's so many different rules when it comes to these 8 and 10 years. And I think that's something that needs to be looked at. And because I've read it, I've looked at it, I get confused with it. And I've been riding this train since '78. So, I mean,
okay, well,
it's very confusing. It's very confusing.
Let me see if I can go around, see if I can find anybody who is not in the VA that has sort of explained this. But I believe either way, either the 8 or the 10-year rule, she will get money.
Correct.
Okay, and I believe that the difference in the amount is not that much. Now, after the 2 years, then it will increase. It'll almost double after the first 2 years.
But she's still able to get her medical through. There goes my mind. Help me out here, Jim.
Okay, so are you talking about a military retired, or are you talking non-military retired?
non-military retirement, and
Yes,
she can get health care benefits through our
through
disability.
Champ VA.
Champ
Champ
VA.
yes,
Correct.
that will continue for her.
Correct.
Or let's say that you were single and your mother was still alive.
Correct.
Okay. Then if you were single, then your mother would get the DIC pension.
That's the way I understand it.
That's the way I understand it too. So it gets, and also your mother would be entitled to Champ VA health care.
One thing we all have
Yeah,
to
it
understand
gets,
this is come January 1st of every year, rules change, and
or
we just
could.
or could change. We really have to stay on top of this because I mean, if people are looking like I can't work, and like we've said before, and I'm unable to work, and I need my 100% or something like that. It's not the same as when I first applied for it years ago, because as of January 1st, is like we said before, as soon as your Social Security kicks in, you're going to lose that disability of the amount of money that Social Security is paying you. So, I mean, you got to really stay on top of this stuff because it changes constantly. So that was
Yes,
why I was wanting to explain the 8-year rule and the 10-year rule. For some of the individuals out there, it doesn't apply, but for other people, you're getting close to 8 years or 10 years at 100%. We need to kind of have that information out there. Maybe not just for this group, but for people that are listening, uh, uh, searching for answers. So
yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah,
just a
that's true
question.
because
Okay.
I'm right now coming up on I think August the 1st or so, I will be 8 years, 100%. So all I got to
Yep.
do is make it another couple months and cross that line, and the wife is in the money.
Yeah, but she's not going to get that $132, buddy. You're out of that.
Yeah, that's that. Hey, well, Oh,
Mark,
anyway,
you're so right though that benefits management is the key.
oh, absolutely. And just as if I know everybody says if you've got some disease, this is not a journey to take alone. Well, in the VA, this is not a journey to take alone because it can get so involved. Although the good part of it is somebody out there understands it. We just have to find them and get it explained.
Jim, I have a follow-up question. This is
Yeah,
costly. I have a follow-up question regarding
okay,
this discussion on the whole business spousal benefits. My rating is 70% TNP with 30% unemployability.
right.
So
TDIU.
I'm collecting at 100%, but my
Yes,
my actual rating is 70%
yes,
TNP.
it is.
Okay. So for the computation of spousal benefits, suppose I should kick the bucket tomorrow. What would be my wife, and I'm 11 years in collecting. So how would they compute the spousal benefit for someone in my
Well, it
situation?
depends. It depends. If you die of a service connected um thing you have, okay, let's say you have heart for 10 or hypertension for 10. If you die of a heart related issue or a stroke, and that cause of death is then on the death certificate, she is entitled to the pension. Okay. If you get hit by a bus, she gets nothing.
Hmm.
Or you die of something totally that is not VA rated. Okay. She gets nothing at all.
So I have to make sure that I have something that's VA related.
Well, that's true. Or somehow we figure out, if you start having health issues, how to get you to a real 100%. Because actually now you are actually 100% temporary, and maybe at some point they may declare you 100% permanent, but you're still collecting TDIU.
Right.
So you're, and I don't know if 100% TDIU permanent qualifies for survivor benefits. That's an interesting question.
Well, I guess like Mark is concerned about something there. I probably should be concerned about that as well, because if I should kick the bucket, I'd like to know that my wife is going to receive some kind of compensation.
No, isn't there? No, that's Social Security. You get the $255 to pay for the tombstone.
Yeah, that's a lovely sum.
Yeah, right. Now I don't think it would buy 3 bricks, but still. Okay. No, out of the VA. Now, the thing that will happen if you are collecting Social Security, then your social, she will be stepped up to your Social Security if it is greater than hers.
Right.
If it's
Yeah,
not,
but that's just Social Security. That
right,
doesn't
right. That is
she
right.
doesn't get the VA
No,
related benefits.
no. So, are you retired government employee offhand?
Yes.
Okay, so and you signed up for the survivor benefit program?
Yes.
Okay, then she is going to get half of your OPM pension.
Right.
Okay,
I
and
understand that.
right, and she continues the health care. Okay, the health care through OPM if you have that in force, which hopefully you do.
Well,
See,
she has her own health care because she's still employed. She's an employee of the state in which we live. So I'm not
Oh, so
concerned about
she,
from that perspective.
so, okay, so, and so she has her own health care through the state of
Arkansas.
Maryland?
No, I live in Arkansas.
Oh, Arkansas. Okay, well then you're, so, at the time that you had OPM healthcare, were you the only one on it?
Yes,
Okay, so it would then go away. Yeah, that's
absolutely.
fine, and she has her own healthcare, and that's good.
Right.
see,
Smart lady.
I think Cosby and I are, and the Colonel, we're all speaking in the same concern is exactly if you're 70 plus unemployability or 90 plus unemployability and you're coming up on 8 years or whether or not like Cosby's at 11 years, what what are our spouses going to get when we hit these 8 year terms and these 10 years and stuff like that? Because we've got to
Well,
fight this battle with ourselves so the ladies don't have to when we're
oh,
gone.
absolutely.
I understand Cosby 100%. He's got a concern too.
Well, the only, if you're not 100%, truly 100% permanent and total, okay, for the 8 years or the 10 years, the only option you've got is to die of some service connected uh, disease or something, and it appears on the death certificate for the wife to get anything.
Well, I didn't realize that.
Right. So that's how come the thing that I really attempt to do is to try to figure out how to get somebody to have a real 100% permanent and total. Barring that, then plan B is to get them the 100% money while they're alive. And hopefully you start saving it for her. You know?
Okay.
No, as a byproduct of this discussion, then
Right.
I'm 70% TNP PTSD.
Right.
And when I got approved, my DAV officer, who told me that because based upon the nature of my approval, I wouldn't get a review, annual review, and I've been now approved many years, and I never had an annual review.
Okay. Right.
And so,
sure.
But my question is, and I think I've asked this question before, and I'm not sure what the answer was.
Okay.
How can I elevate myself from 70% to 100%?
How decrepit are you these days? In other words, what other medical problems might you have that, well, just what other medical issues do you have?
Well, pursuant to my medical records, I have neuropathy in both feet.
Okay.
I have high blood pressure.
Okay.
I have the prostate cancer issues, and its subsidiary. I have the prostate cancer and its subsidiary issues, the ED, the urinary incontinence, and stuff like that.
Okay. I'm trying to see if I've got notes on you right here in my little book, and I may not. Because wait here.
I think he should be able to at least go speak with somebody about applying for that 30%, minimum for prostate cancer, and that'll get him that 70-30.
Well, so my concern has always been this. I really don't want to open Pandora's box. I've been hesitant over the past several years to open Pandora's box.
Correct.
And so I've sort of sat here and cruised up to this point. But if I'm getting to the point where I'm getting more decrepit, as and then if my spouse doesn't stand to reap any benefits, and I need to take some affirmative steps to see that we increase to 100%. But I'm really concerned about opening up Pandora's box as far as my records are concerned.
Well, that's true. So now just Sylvester, chime in here. You have your hand up.
I thought Mark had said, and Costley had confirmed, that he is service-connected for prostate cancer. Did I miss?
No, I'm not service-connected for that.
Okay.
No. Now, Cosley, just a quick review, refresh my memories. Are you a Vietnam vet?
No, I'm Persian Gulf.
Oh, prostate cancer is presumptive.
Oh,
absolutely. Hypertension, no, hypertension for Persian Gulf is not. I have a question for you. How many times a night do you get up to pee?
Well, I'm getting up 3 or 4 times.
On a bad night.
I've been treated now. I have the radical prostatectomy.
Yes, right. Remember, and you were treated with what? Radiation or surgery?
No, I had the RP.
Okay,
radical
so
prostatectomy.
And that was more than 6 months ago, right?
I had it in 22.
Okay, so your rating will be on residuals. Okay, so let's just say you are a 70% now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you get 3 to 4 times a night is 30%. So that's an extra 9 points. So you would go from 70 to 79, you would be 80 now, 80%. Or I don't know if you're 70 is like 66 or 65 rounded to 70, or it is 74 rounded down to 70.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, actually, no, actually it would be 70 because you only have PTSD. That's it, right?
That's it. Yes, sir.
So even if you got 60%, that would be an extra 18 points. You would be up to 90, according to the VA math, because remember, okay, you have 70 with a 30-point remainder, right?
Right.
If you've got a 60%, 60% of 30 is 18, right? So you'd add 18 on to 70, which is now 88, which is rounded to 90. So with the prostate cancer alone, with a 60%, you would be 90. If it was 40%, it would still be 80, because 40% of 30 is 12, so that would be 82. So anyway, but that's a start.
But my concern is, what is the realistic danger of having my file reviewed? Because that's, as I said, that's been my concern and over time.
Well, what they do is, if they did do that, which I'm with all of the C&P exams that they have going for all those thousands and thousands of vets that are within a backlog. I have a guy that's in a backlog 2 years. Okay. Are they going to spend the time to go back and to reopen things? Because how long have you had the 70%?
I would argue that I've had that since 2014.
So you are beyond the 10 years.
I am beyond the 10 years, yes, sir.
Okay, so do you believe that or do you believe they can prove that your health condition has improved substantially?
Well, I don't know what substantially means.
Well, it means a hell of a lot. No, honestly, that's true. Substantially means they have to prove it, not you. So how do they prove that? I have no idea.
He tells them it has improved.
Right. So has it really improved in your estimation? Of course, don't answer that because we are not under oath here. So, but just think about that. And if you're still having the PTSD episodes occasionally, even, it hasn't improved substantially to me. I'm not a doctor, but okay. Now, you said hypertension. Did you have hypertension in the Navy? Or wait, Army,
Air
Navy,
Force.
Air Force.
We're elegant folks here. We're Air Force.
Yeah. Well, you could be Space Force today, you know.
Well, yeah.
Hey.
They're even more elegant.
Yeah, right. Yes. But
no,
so, okay.
I don't believe...
Do you have heart issues?
I do not.
Okay. You probably have a big heart, but not that kind of heart. Okay.
Right.
Great.
Yes.
Great. Okay. So prostate cancer, hypertension, neuropathy. I really haven't looked into neuropathy. Sylvester, you have your hand up. Anything to share?
My thinking is slightly different.
Okay.
and years
Okay.
if he will be rated presumptive for prostate cancer and he has had a radical prostatectomy. There are other issues like the loss of the use of vital organs.
Right.
And I'm not so sure his rating for prostate cancer would be higher than his PTSD.
No, it isn't going to be higher, but it would be additive, because then he'd have like 70% for the PTSD, and let's just say 40% for the prostate cancer,
Yeah,
because
but what about the additional benefits for the loss of use of organs?
that is money. That is a monthly stipend. It doesn't have anything to that is special monthly compensation. That's a separate payment. $136.06. There's no disability rating associated with it.
Okay.
Right. So hypertension at the best case is 10. So if you said 5 to 6 times a night, that would be 40%. If you say that you change pads 4 to 5 times a day, meaning a full day, a 24-hour day, that is 60%. So if I put it into the calculator, the best you can get out of that would be 90, which is close. That would also, now, are you retired out of the Air Force?
No.
No. That would entitle the wife to also to have CHAMP VA insurance, which brings up another point, but she's already got private insurance, right?
That's correct.
But what you do is you tell the private insurance company that you have CHAMP VA insurance, which will pay second. So therefore, any things like copays and anything else that she pays will be billed to the VA, and whatever they allow will be must be accepted as final payment. And in fact, in my case, I got community care out to Johns Hopkins, okay, and I had 4 blood tests. Each blood test was around $338, which was billed to the VA. Okay? VA allowed $10.59. That's what they paid John Hopkins. Another one was $9.32.
Did John Hopkins have to accept it?
Absolutely, by law.
Yeah,
They
I have
must
community care
accept.
right now. I have community care for my dental work. Before, sometime
Okay.
around the beginning of COVID,
Okay.
the VA dental care office referred me out to community care.
Right.
And it has not changed. So I've been doing community care for dental, and I have
Yeah.
excellent care
Sure.
for dental. So, things like that doesn't bother me. What bothers me, Jim, is if I do put in something else and they reopen my file and decide to reassess my
Yes.
situation,
Okay.
that's what would cause me some angst.
Well, they would reassess your PTSD. Now, how did they assess it in the first place? Way back when, okay, you applied for it, and what happened? I'm curious. Did they
Well,
call you in, or did they ask you questions or what?
They did. They did. I had a
Okay,
CNP.
and
I was going to VA mental health, and
okay,
from there I had a CNP, and they determined that that's the rating that I was qualified for, and I never really
okay.
argued the issue.
Oh no, no. 70% for the PTSD, I think is great. I know guys that have it at 40 and 50%. Now, just out of curiosity, are you still seeing anybody about the issues you had then, or have you somehow come to grips with them?
Well, I wrapped up several months of therapy of one-on-one therapy at the VA late last year, and
Okay,
I still see a medicine manager in my mental health clinic.
okay. So you're
But
still under treatment for it
I am, yes, sir.
officially. Okay,
Yeah.
well, that to me says well, you're still you you still have it. So I think you have a right to be concerned, and it's what you have to weigh. And the question is that if you opened up the squirrel cage, could you get to 100% right now? And the answer is with the prostate cancer and the hypertension, no. You can get to 90, but you can't get to 100. Okay? Unless there's something else. Sylvester.
Sometimes when you're treated for prostate cancer, the cancer is in remission.
Yes.
It does not mean it can't recur.
Yep.
Right.
It's true.
And you should think about that.
I was going to bring, excuse me, guys, I was going to bring that up, Sylvester, and thank you. Have you in this group had people enter it that have Gleason 910 aggressive prostate cancer where they've had biochemical recurrence and had salvage radiation once, twice, and what is now called metastases directed therapy?
Yep.
That is continuing recurrence of prostate cancer where your basically your PSA drops down and then grows back. That's the situation I'm in. So
Right.
when we're talking about incontinence or frequency of urination, I've got a couple of those issues. A couple of times a night urinating, I think I'm doing okay if I get 2 or 3 hours between. I'm more concerned with metastases appearing now on my collapsed spinal column and having radiated 2 of them when they've come back.
Right.
So when you apply for prostate cancer, I'm applying for prostate cancer that is probably going to kill me because
Yes.
it is an aggressive prostate cancer.
Even if it isn't aggressive, like I have a Gleason 734, right? But
Okay,
I am stage 4. I
so am I.
am I am stage 4. So once you reach stage 4, you are 100% PNT for prostate cancer. There's no residual consideration. So,
But you've got to basically, to get a rating for prostate cancer, you have to be somewhere, it sounds like, where you are exposed to something that they will link
that's
service
right.
connection to.
Service connection is the first thing to prove when you claim anything, as I have in the template I created, the first thing out of the box is, how can I blame the Air Force or the Navy or the Marine Corps or the Coast Guard? And if I can, then I can claim whatever I claim. So, Causley, I take it that your PSA is non-existent, right?
My PSA is negligible. It's less than 0.01. But
Right.
one thing I forgot, Jim. I also have
Okay.
CKD among my comorbidities.
Oh, chronic kidney disease. Okay, well then that opens up. Let's just in the calculator I've got, I would have to put that in. But if chronic now is it? I forget if that's rated. I would have to look up. It might be rated around 30%. So if you had a 40%, a 30%, and a 10% on top of 70, would that get you to 95? I'd have to put it into my calculator, but you are getting close.
Yeah.
Now, if you were a 40% and a 30%, or a 60% and a 30% and a 10% on top of the 70%, that might get you even closer. I don't know. I would have to put it in. Sylvester.
I'm sorry, I didn't take my hand down.
Oh, okay.
Is CKD one of the presumptive Persian Gulf Desert Storm conditions?
I will have to look that up because not too many people ask for that one. Prostate cancer, heart issues, leukemias, all of that stuff. I will have to look that one up. Try to make. I think it's got. I think chronic kidney disease can even. No. You were Air Force. You were around airplanes. You've got firefighting foam, AFFF, which is a biggie. You've got the jet fuel. It burns. Benzene. You got all kinds of nasty things. That's a possibility. Zahid Malik, WhatsApp audio. Let me see here for.
Yeah. Well, it is certainly something to think about. But as I alluded to, my hesitancy is that opening up what you call the squirrel cage. You open it up and there's no telling what kind of wild animals will jump out or try to get in.
Well, that's true. So here, stand by for just a minute. Okay. If we put in a 70 and a 60 and a 30 and a 10, what does that give me? 92.44. So you're still not there.
Yeah.
But I don't know if now I don't know how severe your chronic kidney disease, and I haven't looked up how it's rated, but let me see.
It can go all the way up to 100%. If you're on dialysis, it's 100%.
Oh, yeah.
If you have like swollen in your ankles and stuff like that, I think it's like 80%.
Yeah, I do have that, and all of that is reflected in my medical records. I wear the support hose for.
Like I think it's called the medical term. I think it's called edema.
Edema. Yes, I have. Like yeah, I have that, and I get my compression socks out of the VA. Thank you very much. $35 a piece. I got a box of a half a dozen. Thank you very much.
I just got a box myself. Thank you. Thanks for your service.
Of course, I happen to run around in the shorts and everybody sees I got the black compression socks and I put on the white socks for the sneakers and I am colorful. Yep. Yeah. Crossley, I will hook up the CKD to see if there's some way that possibility to get you to 95. And then it's up to you to say, well, do I go for it or not?
Yeah.
And so, but to me, them going back to opening up the boxes when they've got so many people in the queue, and I know every month they have to report their statistics to Congress. How many claims are still outstanding? How many, etc. That's how come your C&P examiners are so hot to trot to get you in there. And if you miss one, oh, Lord help you. If you miss two, your case is killed. Okay, it's 10 o'clock. And anybody else with the final words here?
Been a very good session.
Oh, yes. I thank you very much for the question. And Jeff, I got a note. Well, here, I do have a note, or I will have a note. I got to write things down. I'm getting old. Nope, I am old. Okay. Anything else? I'll see everybody in 2 weeks if you care to join us. And let me stop the.
Thank you, guys. I enjoyed it. It was very enlightening. Thank you very much.
Okay, and the last thing I'll say for all of the people out there, I even got a call today from a guy that has been watching the videos, believe it or not. So we are being done that. There is a way to get a hold of me through AnCan using the email address of captjim@ancan.org. And I'll try to check it every 2 or 3 days. I was a little remiss here. I learned, but. And what's the next?
I'll wait to hear from you, Jim, when you're ready to work on that. Okay?
Okay, Jeff.
Okay. Thank you, guys. I'm going to leave. Have a good